Okay, everybody, welcome to part one of this discussion on the scam behind the lottery games. Yeah, surprise of all surprises, they have this avenue completely rigged as well. I'll argue that lottery games are things that people should stay away from anyway. It's like gambling, right? Yeah, I have some friends that gambled. I've actually gambled a few times myself. It's not my thing. Uh, on the rare occasion that I do it, it's just because a friend will ask me to go, and I'll go mostly to watch him play. I might pull a few handles or press a few buttons. They don't even have handles anymore. Everything's electronic. But I might play a slot machine or two or something. And yeah, I've won a little here and there. I think the most I've ever won is like $160 or something. Big deal. But it doesn't do anything for me. I don't really even though I've won, on another occasion I won like $80, and even though I've won a little here and there, it doesn't do anything for me because I know it's a freaking rigged game and it's a trap, right? Even if it wasn't rigged, the odds are always going to be stacked against you. They're not going to uh, run casinos unless they're making money, and they make money by you losing, right? But it turns out that even though it's a trap, if the machines weren't rigged, um, it turns out that, yeah, the machines are rigged, right? When you're not physically pulling a handle, when you're not playing with actual physical cards, and it's not the same person shuffling all the time so they can rig it that way. Still, it's risky business, right? That's why they call it gambling. You're gambling with your money. You're taking the chance that you're going to, win it all or lose it all. And most of the time, people do, in fact, lose it all. But today, they're losing it all on a grander scale because, yeah, the thing is rigged. It's like the touchscreen machines, right? It's all designed to look efficient and professional and above the board. It's not. It's not at all. The whole lottery, whether it's at a gambling casino or whether you're going to the corner store to buy a state uh, printed scratch ticket or mega bucks winner. That's what we call it here in Massachusetts, anyway. Mass mega bucks. Every state has their version of it, right? It's still gambling. It's still a risk, and as I will demonstrate, it's more than a risk. It's a fargan scam. Sure, there are those on occasion that win, right? But the vast majority lose and lose big. Your chances of actually winning, you're better off, you know, skipping in a thunderstorm, and bargaining on getting hit by lightning. You got a better chance of getting hit by lightning um, than you do winning the lottery. It's pretty sad. People play with high hopes, thinking I could be the one. Yeah, and you could be the one that gets hit by lightning when you go out in the. It's extremely rare. It's just not worth wasting your money on, especially nowadays when most people can't afford those few extra bucks, right? And yet now it's the government that runs this for the most part. It's the government that's setting people up for failure. When in fact it used to be the job of the government to make it very difficult, for casinos to be established so that people wouldn't fall into this trap. Now they're the ones setting the trap. Anyway, most history books trace the earliest lottery games uh, back to the time of the Roman Caesars in the second to first centuries BC. Some claim that the Chinese beat them to it by several centuries, but nobody can be sure where it originated. But it appears that even earlier references to lotteries is found in the Bible. For example, in Leviticus 16, verse 8, it says, Then Aaron shall cast lots for the two goats, one lot for the Lord, and the other lot for the scapegoat. This is the time of, what's called Yom Kippur, right? Or the Day of Judgment, or the Day of Atonement. where two goats were selected by lots, literally flip of a dice, right? One lot would fall for the Lord's goat, which was sacrificed, and the other one was the Azazel goat, which I've talked about in past videos. And um, that was on my other channel, by the way. And that goat was to be, it also was supposed to be a sin bearer, right? Both goats had sins confessed over them. One was sacrificed for atonement. The other goat, which also had sins, confessed over its head, was released into the wilderness and allowed to die out in the wilderness unattended, right? But why was the choice for which goat was to be sacrificed and which was to be let loose in the wilderness? Why was that choice left up to a toss of the dice, a lottery, if you will? Casting lots. It went on to say, and Aaron shall bring the goat on which the Lord's lot fell and offer it as a sin offering, but the goat on which the lot fell to be the scapegoat shall be presented alive before the Lord to make atonement upon it and to let it go as the scapegoat into the wilderness. So notice, lots were cast for both, and based on how the lots were cast, how it turned out, one would be sacrificed, the other one would be let loose, again, in the wilderness. But notice how both of them were supposed to atone, right? You could understand the one that was sacrificed and had its blood shed and was killed to be for atonement, right? But how was this other goat that was let loose in the wilderness allowed to die? How was that to atone? And why was that necessary if the other one already atoned? That's another whole story. I dealt with that, again, on my other channel a while back. Very interesting story on its own, but I didn't mean to get into a discussion on that right now. The issue is here that the idea of casting lots is really a gamble, right? Why would the great Yahweh have this decision made based on a gambling exercise? Why wouldn't he tell them, that this goat was to be used for sacrifice and the other one to be let loose? No, he left it up to a game of chance, a toss of the dice. So it looks like gambling goes back the furthest in history to Jews. Not the Romans, not the Chinese, to Jews. And it's Jews that obviously foisted this idea on them later. 2 Chronicles 24 verse 31 says, these also cast lots, just as their brothers had done, and the sons of Aaron died in the presence of King David, Zadok, Amalek, and the heads of the fathers. In other words, to determine one's fate, lots were cast. So again, it's the idea of a lottery, if you will, right? A toss of the dice to determine what the future outcome would be. Anyway, there's quite a few passages like this. Here's some other ones. 1 Chronicles 25:8 says, and they cast lots for their duty, the small as well as the great, the teacher as well as the student. So everyone was into this, right? It was like a toss of the coin. Let's see which direction we're to go. Funny how this not so holy book would leave decision making up to a lottery or to a tossing of the dice, right? Why not consult the great Yahweh? No, it doesn't even say that. In fact, Yahweh himself gave such instructions to cast lots for determining things. We find it in the New Testament, right? When, Judas hung himself and now there were only 11 disciples instead of 12, or apostles, it was now left up to them to try to figure out who was going to replace, who was going to replace Judas as the 12th disciple. And so the decision was made based on casting lots, once again, like a toss of the dice, right? Or a flip of the coin. Isn't that interesting? So, Christians would say, oh, well, that casting lots stuff, that was just the Old Testament. No, it wasn't. It was practiced in the New Testament. The choice for who was to replace Judas as the new 12th apostle was based on casting lots, as it says in the book of Acts. Anyway, here's another passage like this. Proverbs 18, verse 18 says, casting lots causes contentions to cease and keeps the mighty apart. Really? So it's acting here like playing dice, right? Flipping the coin or playing the lottery is a good way to cause contentions to cease. Just flip the dice and let the dice decide. It's a game of random luck, like playing the lottery. The instance of picking who was going to replace Judas, again, as the 12th apostle, the actual reference is Acts 1:26, if you want to look that up. So there you go. This was a New Testament as well as an Old Testament practice. So in tracing back the earliest history of playing the lottery or flipping the coin to determine your fate, right? If we were going to trace it back, the earliest we can go as far as what's survived in the, into modern times, the earliest record is in fact in the Bible. So the lottery game really is a Jewish enterprise now, isn't it? That shouldn't surprise us, because when we look at the modern lottery racket, yeah, their fingerprints are all over that as well. And as I said, it is a rigged game. And isn't every game they play a rigged game? There's been many instances over the years of scams being reported regarding lotteries all over the country, and indeed all over the world for that matter. This pattern is so prevalent, in fact, that it makes one wonder why anyone would even want to participate in the lottery. It's all rigged, just like the electoral process, right? I will never vote again. I did it once, and only because I was so enraged with Emperor Bush Jr. and the fiascos, the treason that was going on with him. Even though I knew Kerry was a scumbag, skull and bones piece of trash, right? I just wanted Bush out, right? So I voted just anything, just to get rid of him. I didn't bother with any third-party candidate because they're never going to get in anyways. But no, it turns out that, as sleazy as Kerry is, he actually did win in 2004. He did. They rigged it, though, because everything was going so well for them under Bush, they didn't want to have to make any window dressing changes or any changes at all, right? Which they would have to do with someone new coming in from the other party. Even just for window dressing purposes, it would have upset the apple cart. They couldn't have marched forward so easily as they had done under Bush. So even though they loved Kerry, he was one of the little bitches, right? They didn't want to have to undergo a regime change. So they simply stole it through the Diebold touchscreen machines. Of course, they stole it in 2002 so that Bushy Boy won then, with Brother Jeb stuffing ballot boxes in Florida with out-of-state names from out-of-state phone books, names picked out of obituaries, on and on and on. Both elections were stolen. But, like I say, does it really matter? Does it really matter which one actually wins when the two runner-up candidates are always the little whores anyway? No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference. And so it is with the lottery games, right? Once in a while, you might hear of some neighbor down the street that actually did win. Sure, they're going to allow a few here and there to win, on occasion, just for window dressing purposes. So, it'll look legitimate and encourage people to still play the game, right? But it is largely rigged. And even if it wasn't, what hope can you think that possibly can bring you when there are, in some cases, tens, scores, or hundreds of millions of people? There's been lotteries where people from all over the country would buy into one state's lottery because the stakes were so high. But yet, the more people play, the less your chances, right, of ever winning. But even with just only a million playing, your chances are still phenomenally slim. It's so sad, and yet I've known people to spend $50, $100, even more, several $100s, buying hundreds of tickets, thinking that, oh, that's going to make my chances all that much better, hundreds of times better. But what good is hundreds of times better when the odds are multiplied millions to one, right? It really doesn't make a difference. Certainly not a difference of any noticeable significance, right? People think it does, but no, it doesn't. All it does is put you more in the poorhouse and fill you with more false hopes. Anyway, but aside from that, that's assuming that the thing is actually run legitimately. But no, most of the lotteries, most of the time, are rigged games. Whether it's individuals outside the industry, corrupt workers within the industry, or the entire system at the highest levels, the whole thing is quite obviously corrupt through and through. Let's look at some prime examples, though, of lottery rigging over the years, so you get an idea just how disgusting the whole damn game is and how it works. Eddie Raymond Tipton, a former information security director of the Multi-State Lottery Association, or MUSL, was convicted of rigging a $14.3 million drawing of MUSL's hot lotto game out of Iowa years back. This large sum of money was the prize for the hot lotto draw on December 29th of 2010, but it had been left unclaimed for nearly a year when attempts finally were made to claim the prize on behalf of an anonymous offshore trust company in Belize. Oh, no, that doesn't sound suspicious, does it? The claim was rejected by the Iowa Lottery because it was made anonymously, right? Of course. That sounded very suspicious right off the top. A subsequent investigation into the trust and the discovery of surveillance footage from a convenience store that allegedly depicted the ticket being purchased had led to the arrest of Tipton on 2 counts of fraud for attempting to illegally participate in a lottery game as an employee of the MUSL, and then trying to claim a prize through fraudulent means. He was running a scam, right? When his trial began on April 13th of 2015, evidence was introduced by the prosecutors to support allegations that Tipton had rigged the drawing in question by using his privileged access to an MUSL facility to install a root kit on the computer containing Hot Lotto's random number generator, and then attempting to claim a winning ticket with the rigged numbers anonymously. He rigged it, so he would win. On July 20th of 2015, Tipton was found guilty on both counts, and he was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment pending an appeal. Tipton was subsequently accused of rigging other lottery drawings as well, dating back to at least 2005. Tipton was apparently not Jewish, although who knows, might have been a crypto. But the tactic that he employed certainly was as Jewish as one could get. But don't worry, there have been many scams like this over the years that did indeed involve definite Jewish perpetrators, as we'll see. Back in 2009, a Bulgarian lottery had the exact same winning number come up in two drawings that were only 4 days apart, on September 6th and September 10th of that year, 2009. The winning numbers were 4, 15, 23, 24, 35, and 42. In the first drawing, there were no winners, but in the second one, 10 people had the winning sequence. Supposedly, an investigation found no foul play, but with the chances of this being 42 million to 1, that seems highly unlikely in the ultimate extreme, right? Is it not obvious that this was, in fact, a rigged game? Either the investigators weren't able to figure out how it was rigged, or they weren't actually investigating. But it's the next scam that we'll be looking at that should really make your chin drop. In the early fall of the following year, 2010, the same exact winning lottery numbers were drawn within 3 weeks of each other in Israel. Imagine my shock. Of all places, Israel? Why? Anyway, the winning sequence was 13, 14, 26, 32, 33, 36, and the strong number was 2. Strong number, quote unquote, the bonus number. They just had to get the numbers 13 and 33 in there, didn't they? But anyway, the odds of this happening by chance were an astonishing and impossible 4 million to 1. As within the Bulgarian coincidence, no foul play was found in the course of an investigation. Yeah, whatever. How much do you want to bet that the Bulgarian episode was also rigged by the tribe? And so was the investigation. Anyway, on April 27th, 2011, the Florida State Lottery winning numbers were 20, 16, 27, 37, 53, 26. Yet, when the numbers were being picked, the announcer on live TV could be seen changing one of the numbers right in front of the camera. The number 53 originally had come up as 35. So it got flipped. The jackpot for this drawing was $17 million. A Washington State newspaper, the Columbian, printed the winning pick 4 numbers for the Oregon State Lottery several hours before the numbers were actually drawn on July 3rd, 2000. Tell me that wasn't rigged, right? Later, the Washington paper justified itself by claiming that it accidentally reported the winning numbers for Virginia's lottery, which already were announced, and which just so happened to be the exact same numbers as Oregon's winning pick, 6855. So how much you want to bet Washington and Virginia were both rigged that same day? Wow, man. On August 3rd, 2015, it was reported that police in Serbia had arrested seven people in connection with a lottery scam there, in which some of the winning numbers were displayed on TV before they were even picked. So very similar to the previous game we just looked at. This is going on all the time, all around the world, folks. Just before a $5 million scratch ticket was about to expire in March of 2012, Andy and Niall Ashkar of Syracuse, New York, had brought the winning ticket to the New York lottery office. But there were a few problems with their claim. Andy said that he had purchased the ticket in 2006, but he waited to claim the prize because he was engaged and didn't want the money to affect the relationship. He also told the lottery office that he would take less than $5 million if he could skip the press conference where they announced the winners. Didn't want attention, right? Lottery officials traced the sale of the ticket to the store that Andy and Niall's parents had owned. All of these things made lottery officials suspicious of the brothers, right? When the office made a public announcement that the brothers were claiming the ticket, Robert Miles contacted the lottery office and told them that the ticket was his. After Miles had purchased the ticket in 2006, he thought that he had won $5 million. When Miles went to the store owned by the Ashkars, though, the brothers convinced him that he had only won $5,000. Addicted to crack at the time, Miles got confused and believed them. Imagine that. The brothers offered Miles $4,000 for the ticket so that he didn't have to claim it and wait for the money, which would have been taxed. He agreed, although he always suspected that the brothers had ripped him off somehow. But he didn't think that he could do anything about it, so he just took his money and ran with it. If he accused them, it would be his word against theirs, and Miles didn't think that anyone would believe a crack addict, so again, he let it slide. Miles, of course, needed the money too at the time. He had declared bankruptcy in 2008. After Miles claimed the ticket, the brothers were arrested. Niall was acquitted, and Andy was originally given 8.5 to 25 years in prison. In July of 2015, his sentence was reduced to 5 to 15 years. Miles was awarded his prize in August 2013. Ashkar, by the way, is a Moroccan Jewish name. Yeah. Are you surprised? On to our next fiasco here. Rameli Mazik was the deputy security director of the Arkansas Scholarships Lottery from July 2009 until November of 2012. His career came to an abrupt end when it was discovered that he was stealing from work. Not just pens or even a stapler. He was stealing scratch tickets. Between November 2009 and October 2012, Mazik stole 22,171 tickets in all and claimed almost $500,000 in prize money. Mazik had taken the tickets from the vendor's warehouse and assigned them to vendors that were no longer selling tickets. Then he went into the computer system and marked the ticket as promotional. Lottery officials finally caught up with Mazik after they had noticed a disproportionate number of winning tickets tied to just one lottery vendor that didn't make sense to them. Their investigation led directly to Mazik, who was arrested and pleaded guilty to the fraud. In November of 2013, Mazik was sentenced to 3 years and 1 month in prison and was forced to pay back $482,672 of his so-called winnings. Mazik, by the way, is a Polish name of Jewish descent. In April of 1988, Mark Harbst, a 33-year-old clerk at a video store, went to the Pennsylvania lottery office with a winning ticket from July 15th, 1987, to claim his prize of $15.2 million. Herbst said that after he had bought the ticket, he had used it as a bookmark and then had thrown it into a cigar box. He checked it after he read a newspaper article about unclaimed lottery prizes, as his story went. The lottery office immediately checked the ticket and found a problem with it. Their records said that the winning ticket had been printed in Bucks County, but Herbst's ticket had been printed at an outlet in Scranton. So things weren't adding up here. Despite the inconsistency, the lottery office held a press conference announcing Herbst as the winner and handed him a check for his first payment of $469,989.55. 2 hours after the announcement, investigators had determined that the ticket was in fact a forgery. They called Herbst's bank and told them that the check would not be paid. On May 1st, the police confronted Herbst. He confessed and gave them information about his partner, computer expert Henry Rich. Rich worked for Control Data Corporation, which had provided the computer services for the Pennsylvania lottery office. Oh, isn't that interesting? Rich had been able to scan for unclaimed prizes and then manipulated the computer to print out the winning ticket for $15.2 million. Rich was arrested when he tried to pick up his ill-gotten winnings at the video store where Herbst had worked. Both men pleaded guilty to a number of charges, including fraud. Rich received 5 to 10 years in prison, while Herbst was given 2 to 4 years. He received an even less stringent sentence. Imagine that, when he was the mastermind behind the whole damn thing, or the main orchestrator. Both of the criminals in this story, Herbst and Rich, are most likely of German Jewish origin. Sometime in 2005, lottery agent Zhao Likun, who lived in Anshan, China, had found a flaw in the welfare lottery 3D system that allowed him to print tickets with the winning numbers within 5 minutes of the numbers being announced. He printed a number of these winning tickets from his 3 machines, and then claimed a number of cash prizes himself. Thinking it might look suspicious if he constantly won the lottery, he had some of his family and friends cash in the tickets for him and then bring the money to him for a grand total of $3.8 million. By the end of 2006, the Welfare Lottery Center of Liaoning province in China had uncovered the scam. LeCun was arrested in January of 2007. He was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Life. Although he appealed in November of 2007, the verdict was still upheld. Imagine that. Life sentence. I mean, it's a horrible thing he did, but life. I wonder if he's a Chinese Jew with a name like that, though. Anyway, if so, he belongs right where he is, doesn't he? Between 1999 and 2006, the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation up in Canada had received a number of fraudulent lottery claims by lottery vendors. One of the most notable cases happened in 2003. Store owner Jun Chul Chang and his son Kenneth Chang had regularly stolen winning tickets from people who, checked their tickets at the Chang's convenience store in Burlington, Ontario, lying to them, telling them it was a loser when in fact it was a winner. The Changs, or the Chungs, I should say, would say that, yeah, the tickets were losers, keep them, and then later claim the prizes themselves. This included the December 26, 2003 Super 7 jackpot that was worth $12.5 million. If you ever do play the damn lottery or know others that play it, make sure you tell them that if they take it to the store and ask them if it's a winner, request the ticket. Tell them you want the ticket, even though it's not a winner, right? Just in case, and double check it yourself later. Anyway, 2 months after stealing the ticket, Kathleen Chung, daughter of Jun Chul Chung, had claimed the jackpot. Officials at the lottery office were suspicious, but paid the money anyway. Over the next few years, the lottery office and the Ontario provincial police investigated the disproportionate number of lottery sellers, who were winning the lottery. They got suspicious of this. At the same time, Canadian news programs broadcast exposures about this problem. So in 2007, a report was released about this problem, spotlighting the Chung's claim as one of 5 suspicious cases. Another $100 million was believed to have been won by insiders, including 214 out of 5,713 big jackpots. In 2010, all 3 of the Chungs were charged with fraud and money laundering. The lottery also made an appeal to the public to find the real winners. After a short time, they confirmed the true purchaser of the jackpot ticket. 6 owners who laid cable for a living. They had gone in on the purchase of, I guess, several tickets, one of which was the winner. In January 2011, they were awarded the jackpot plus interest. So it did pay off for them ultimately in the end. But keep in mind, guys, these are just a small few locally run scams, right? The whole thing itself is a scam. That governments actually run these things, right? Sure, one person here, one person there will win. But when you win, you don't actually get the money itself, you know. It's squeaked out to you. In some cases, you can take it in one lump sum. In some cases. But in most cases, no, they don't allow for that. You're only given the money incrementally over a period of like 20 years, right? They'll divide it up. And so when it's all said and done, almost all of that money goes to the state. You're just getting a portion of it, but the bulk stays in a fund and collects interest. They invest it, right? And so you're just getting the interest or a portion of the interest, but the actual original amount itself remains untouched. And so at the end of the 20 years, yeah, that's all you've gotten was the interest or a portion thereof. They kept the original amount. So it's a scam on that level, right? Anyway, between December 1998 and January 1999, police in Milan, Italy, arrested 9 people in connection with a convoluted lottery fraud that may have been going on for several years, they determined. At the time, each Italian city held its own lottery. Milan put all of their lottery numbers on silver balls with blindfolded children drawing the winning numbers from a tumbler. This process seems like it was designed to ensure, randomness, and yet the system was completely fixed. With many related to tax officials, the children were bribed with toys to pick the right numbers. They were told to feel for balls that were smoother and larger than the other ones. The fraud probably went on for 6 years or so until the finance ministry official who hatched the scheme in the first place was posted to a different job. But his co-conspirators weren't ready to give up the money. They wanted the official to get employees at his old posting to restart the scam, but he had refused. So the conspirators started harassing him, even firing a gun at his car and at his relatives' businesses. His wife went to the police, which finally led to the arrests. But as we can see, the scams with lotteries involve both high and low-level fixings, right? They simply cannot be trusted either way, though, regardless who's behind it, whether it's high level or just some scoundrel here or there, some insider, Across the board, lotteries around the world have been riddled with scandal after scandal. The 666 fix is probably the most notorious lottery scandal in all history. During the night of a 3-ball drawing for a then unprecedented PA jackpot of $3.5 million on April 24th of 1980, 3 balls were drawn, 6, 6, and 6. What the 6 million viewers didn't realize at the time was that the TV host, Nick Perry, along with some of his little sidekick cronies, had weighted down all the balls that weren't fours or sixes in order to rig the drawing, right? So it would come up the way they wanted. It was hard to catch Perry and his friends, though, in the act, but they were figured out when an anonymous tip had alerted authorities to a small bar near Philadelphia. Perry's cohorts, the Maragos brothers, had visited the bar and paid for a large quantity of lottery tickets in cash. Playing only 8 specific numbers, a female companion of theirs placed a phone call from the bar and held the receiver up to the sound of the machine printing tickets. She also spoke in Greek, a language that Perry was not fluent in, so she could speak openly without him knowing what she was saying. The call was traced back to WTAE TV, where the drawing would be done by a volunteer and hosted by Perry. So anyway, that's how they caught up with them. Anyway, on and on it goes. On September 12th, 2002, the Associated Press gave this interesting report. Quote, on the first anniversary of the terrorist attacks, 9/11, a date known as 9/11, the 11 numbers drawn in the New York lottery were 911. Did you guys know this? Unbelievable. Exactly 1 year to the date, the lottery numbers for the state of New York were 911. Exactly 1 year after 9/11. What are the chances of that, right? As we've seen, lotteries across the board around the world have had all kinds of problems with corruptions, many of which stemmed from Jews or cryptos. But this here is as corrupt as you can get. This is the lottery number itself. Well, we've seen where, repeated lottery numbers have popped up, twice within a few months of each other. We saw that with Israel, right? One of the earlier examples. But here's one that it's in your face. The actual numbers that came up were 911 on 911 a year after 911. Anyway, the article went on. The numbers were picked in the standard random fashion, seemingly, using all the same protocols, said lottery spokesman Carolyn Hapeman. Said a Jew. Anyway, it's just the way the numbers came up, she said. Lottery officials won't know until Thursday morning how many people played those numbers or the total payout, she said. For the evening numbers game, the New York Lottery selects from balls numbered 0 to 9 circulating in a machine at the lottery office. 3 levers are pressed and 3 balls are randomly brought up into the tubes and then displayed, it said. Yeah, random. Well, there's a number of ways that you can fix that, right? So it's not random. Standard random fashion, said the article. Yeah, or so she said. By the way, on the same day, a that this article came out the day after September 11th, September 12th of 2002. The Associated Press also reported, quote, in an ironic twist, the September Standard and Poor's 500 futures contract closed Tuesday at 911, a day before the 1-year anniversary of the terrorist attacks. Standard and Poor's 500 futures closed at 911. What's that, out of Chicago, I believe? Closed at 911, a day short before the 1-year anniversary of 9/11. Yeah, that's all coincidental and random too, isn't it? This was all standard random fashion. Yeah, whatever. The U.S. Powerball lottery drawing for March 30th of 2005 produced an unprecedented 110 second-place winners, all of whom picked 5 numbers correctly with no Powerball number. The total came out to 19.4 million in unexpected payments. 89 tickets won $100,000, but 21 additional tickets won $500,000 due to the power play multiplier option. Powerball officials initially suspected fraud, but it turned out that all of the winners received their numbers from fortune cookies made by Wonton Food Inc., a fortune cookie factory in Long Island City in Queens, New York. The number combinations printed on fortunes are reused in thousands of cookies per day. The 5 winning numbers were 22, 28, 32, 33, and 39, which is interesting, isn't it? Because almost all of those are very prominent reoccurring numbers in Freemasonry. 22, 32, 38, and 39. The only one that's the exception is 28. All the other ones are big Masonic numbers. Anyway, the 6th number in the fortune, number 40, did not match the Powerball number, which was 42. But notice how the problem stemmed from New York. Yeah. One of the biggest Jew capitals in the country. And again, notice the numbers 22, 33, and 39. All Judeo-Masonic favorites. Yeah, this was all by chance as well. And speaking of Powerball, the New York Daily News reported on December 23rd of 2015, quote, a prominent lottery official who has run the Powerball game since its inception was quietly removed from his 28-year post, leading to multi-state lottery association after a jackpot fixing scandal inside his organization got bigger, according to a document obtained by the Associated Press. Charles Strutt, executive director of the association since its 1987 founding, was stripped of his duties in October by the group's board, which included directors of lotteries in 37 states and U.S. territories. Charles Strutt. What kind of name do you suppose that is? And then there's the problem of lottery numbers being picked according to recognizable patterns, right? Here's some examples of this fiasco. Shortly after the lottery game Cash Windfall was released by the Massachusetts State Lottery in 2004. People with extensive knowledge of probability and statistics found a strange quirk in the prize structure. The game would build up to a $2 million jackpot about every 3 months or so, and then there would be a draw for the $2 million winning prize. As long as no one won the $2 million, which had only happened once in 7 years, the game paid out a large number of smaller prizes in what was called a roll down week. After the probabilities of winning were calculated for this game, it became apparent that if someone spent $100,000 on tickets, they were extremely likely to make a profit on their investment during roll down weeks, right? Also, the more that someone spent, the greater the winnings that they could expect to receive, because your odds weren't as, in the realm of impossibility as with other lottery games. And it was looking like it was set up this way so that insiders could, in fact, do this. In 2010, a group of MIT students realized that if they spent enough money, they could push the jackpot to $2 million by themselves single-handedly and create a rollout week or a roll down week without anyone else knowing. So it's like they were muscling in on the turf of those who set it up this way so that they could profiteer. Anyway, they bought 700,000 tickets, amongst themselves, and won 860 of 983 tickets that had prizes of $600 or more. Between 2004 and 2010, a small group of gamblers spent $40 million and won a total of $48 million off of their tickets. So an $8 million profit. Officials at the Massachusetts State Lottery apparently knew about the flaw in the system, but they kept the game going anyway because they were making a profit as well, selling to people on the other 350 days of the year that weren't making out like these guys were. The game was finally discontinued in 2010 after a report was published by the Boston Globe exposing this fiasco. The Virginia State Lottery was just a few years old when they announced a $27 million jackpot to be drawn on February 15th of 1992. The jackpot caused a stir in the area with people lining up to buy tickets. This happens all the time, right? When a jackpot is particularly high, your likelihood is not any better, right? The higher the jackpot winnings are said to be, but nevertheless, because the numbers are higher for the winner, people go stark raving mad, and it's so sad, guys, how it builds up so many, literally millions of people with these false hopes. Anyway, shortly after the tickets went on sale, lottery officials noticed that the tickets were selling too well, making them suspicious. Meanwhile, an investment syndicate found Australia somehow came to realize that this particular lottery was a lucrative investment. The lottery involved picking 6 numbers from 1 to 44, yielding slightly more than 7 million combinations that could contain the winning number. So the syndicate spent over $5 million buying $1 lottery tickets. The only reason they didn't buy every possible number was because of lack of time. One of the syndicate's 5 million tickets was the jackpot winner. So the Virginia State Lottery was forced to pay $27 million dollars out in prize money. So their investment paid off. After the drawing, they made changes to the lottery to discourage block purchases like this. Also, the odds of winning the lottery have become much worse naturally as a result of stuff like this. If the syndicate wanted to pull the same scheme today, they would need to buy over 175 million tickets. So notice how this just drove the odds up even more ridiculous, right? And so the simple solution to all of this menagerie, this game playing, is simply to not get involved with this at all, right? Joan Ginther, a 63-year-old woman from Texas, won multiple $1 million payouts from Texas lottery over several years' time, right? Multiple times she won. First, she won 5.4 million. Then a decade later, another 2 million. Then 2 years after that, an additional 3 million. And then in the spring of 2008, she won another 10 million, right? This was a total of $20.4 million that she won over the years. The odds of this winning streak have been calculated at 1 in 18 septillion, and yet she did it. If this were, quote, luck, pure luck, right, it could only happen once every quadrillion years. But it wasn't luck. It was actually math. According to Harper's reporter Nathaniel Rich, who wrote an article about Miss Ginther, she's a former math professor with a PhD from Stanford University who specialized in statistics, right? She just looked for repeating patterns, did the math, and presto. It was an algorithm program that she came up with to calculate these winning numbers. She figured out the science behind it, the math behind it. But no one got suspicious of her winning millions of dollars 4 times. In Vegas, you get bounced, if not beaten up, for card counting, right? How was this any different? She totally got away with it, even though they figured out that she had been, using algorithms. Mahan Srivastava's daughter, an Indian name, was only 8 years old, but she already knew how to pick winning lottery tickets up to 90% of the time. 90% accuracy with, winning lottery tickets. She wasn't a prophetess, quote unquote, nor was she a genius. It was simply a trick that she was taught by her statistician father, who looked for hidden patterns among apparently random numbers for a living. So she was using a similar process of algorithms to beat the system. Her father was a statistical sleuth based out of Toronto, Canada, who consulted gold mining companies. His job revolved around analyzing data from rock samples to help decide if it's worth digging a mine there. And so, based on his experience with that, he taught his daughter how to do the same type of statistical analysis, with lottery numbers. Anyway, after he and his daughter had cashed in 90% winning tickets, uh, the Canadian government stepped in and they pulled the game and the game cards, from the shelves the very next day, realizing that there was a flaw in the system that he and his daughter had figured out. I think of my own experience years ago. Oh, I was big on it when the scratch tickets first came out in Massachusetts back in the 80s. I think around the early to mid 80s. Um, After that, once I figured out what a scam the whole damn thing was, I stopped and I never went back. I never got involved in any gambling after that. But I was buying about $20 worth of tickets a week, and I was winning $100 doing that. So it was a great investment, right? This went on for several months. Um, I would go mostly to the same store. Sometimes I would jump around, but it always paid off. I would buy I would buy 20 tickets and I would win, at least $100, sometimes 50, 80, but I was certainly ahead of the game, right? Buying 20 tickets at a time. And then all of a sudden, this was when the game first started, right? All of a sudden, once it took off and it became really popular, I was noticing now that my $20 investment wasn't paying off. I wasn't winning at all. And so I said, screw this. It was just a trap to lure you in. What was going on there, of course, is that they were printing more winners and, sizable winners early on to lure people in, to sucker them in. And then once they got you hooked and saw that the thing was catching on and was popular and that, the money was really starting to roll in now because more and more people were buying them, now they printed less and less winners. What a joke, man. What a joke. It's always how it goes, though. In the beginning, to lure you, they'll give you some good handouts, and then later now, we got them hooked. Now let's print less and less and less winners so we make more and more and more money for ourselves. Most people, sadly, though, didn't catch on to that. Over the years, they've introduced $5 tickets, $10 tickets, $20 tickets, $50 tickets. I don't even know now what the highest price some of these tickets are anymore. I lost interest, of course, a long time ago. So, I know that they were, the last I checked, they were $100 tickets. Imagine that. And they guarantee that, your chances are much higher, the more money you spend. Yeah, much higher to put you in the poorhouse, right? Can you imagine? Selling $50 and $100 tickets. What a joke, man. Anyway, they're not making any more money off of me. And in the meantime, now they've also introduced all of these casinos. Now they got one out in Springfield. They got one in Boston. They wanted to put one in the town I grew up in, but everybody got together. There was a massive turnout. I mean, literally, almost the whole town showed up. The streets were flooded all up and down Main Street. And, there was such a huge turnout of people demanding that this casino not be built that they gave up on the idea, which I was really glad about because the area where they wanted to put it was an area where, I have been going hiking for years that's absolutely loaded with ancient Native American stoneworks. They were going to just dynamite and bulldoze the whole area. And it didn't matter. I tried to point that out and have that area preserved. No, they don't care. They don't give a damn, especially where big money was concerned, right? If that casino came in, oh boy, was that going to generate fat wads of cash for town hall. So they didn't care. They were going to demolish the area until everybody showed up. People didn't want it, right? They didn't want all that. It would wreck the town. It would. Didn't matter that town hall wanted the money, in this case, for so many people to show up. So it pays, guys. It pays for you to go and, rally your neighbors together and get your voice heard. You can, on a local level anyway, make a difference like that. It's more difficult on the state and federal level, isn't it? But on a local level, I mean, you can still bring about changes there too, but it's much more difficult. It's much easier on a local level to stop crap like that. Anyway, there you have it. What a fraud the whole frickin' lottery system is. But before I end this discussion, I simply have to point this out. You'll find this very interesting. There was a surprising amount of lucky winners of the Connecticut State Lottery, Lotto, as it's called, run out of Newtown, where, of course, the fake Sandy Hook school shooting took place back on September 14th of 2012, right? In fact, these winners mostly turned out to be alleged parents of alleged victims of that fake shooting. Did you know that? For example, Mark Mattioli, the father of alleged victim James Mattioli, had quite a bit of lotto luck. He won the lotto 3 times, in fact, within 3 weeks in 2009, before the fake shooting of 2012. Next, he won in 2011 to the amount of $100,000. He then won the lotto again in 2013, a year after the fake shooting, to the tune of $50,000. This is the guy who had lobbied to trash the Second Amendment in the wake of the fake shooting, right? Wow. They sure rewarded him well, didn't they? Remember the stories that came out, too, about all of the mortgages that were paid for? I think it was a year later at Christmas time. All the mortgages mysteriously got paid for all of the, they were rewarding their fake crisis actors with mortgage payments on their homes, right? Another lucky winner, though, in the Sandy Hook saga was Michelle Ann Gay, mother of alleged victim Josephine Gay. Michelle was the co-founder with Allison Parker of Safe and Sound, a Sandy Hook initiative. On September 2nd of 2012, she won $30,000 in the lotto, just a couple months or so before the fake shooting, right? So they were rewarding her in advance for her upcoming services. Stephen Zvon, though not an alleged Sandy Hook parent, was very active in the Sandy Hook fiasco, right? He was a member of the Newtown Economic Commission, and his wife was active in town hall meetings and also in the school's PTO board. Anyway, Stephen won the lotto game a total of 11 times within a 5-year period. The Sandy Hook Barilaris family also won the lotto, as had Frank Mattison 7 times, in fact. Another one connected with the Sandy Hook fiasco. So just look at that. And by the way, like I said before, I'll do a series down the line on these school shootings from over the years, particularly Sandy Hook. I'll focus on that quite a bit. I've got quite a bit of material on that. And for those that aren't familiar with that story, you might know that it was fake, but you might not be familiar with it. Your jaw's going to drop to the floor when you see how many outrageous, in-your-face, obvious indicators that there were to show that it was a hoax, right? Any one of them alone on their own proves that the thing was a fraud. But when you look collectively at how many serious, serious problems there were with that story, and then when you look at the Alex Jones trial from, what was it, last year there? Wow. if you're not already clued in on what a huckster he is, when you see how full of holes Sandy Hook was, and then you see that he retracted everything, he knows full well that thing was a piece of garbage, right? The whole story was frickin' fake. It would be like me suddenly denouncing everything I've said against the Bible and saying that I was wrong. The Bible really is untouchable. It's the Word of God. Or it would be like me saying, I was wrong about the Jews. They're not behind all of our problems in the world. They're not the ones behind the New World Order and Freemasonry and the world's revolutions and the world's economic debacles and, blah, 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 right? It would be the equivalent of me renouncing stuff like that for him to have said that he was wrong about Sandy Hook. What a bunch of garbage, man. Recently, it was announced that he proposed to shell out $500+ million to Sandy Hook parents, blah, blah, blah. How much you want to bet that that's the amount that he's going to get paid for going along with this little game? I think that's more likely the case. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining me. Lots more to come. We'll catch you in the next video. Take care.